Your story is my fingerprint in the valley. There is confidence in the shadow. I will be your strength, one thing's for sure. I am your Lord.
Through the chaos, I will be your joy. When you're finished, I have so much more. In the way, I'm an open door. Stand still and know I am your Lord. There'll be times when you're up and times when you're down. I'm never too far. Just look around and you'll find me. I'm by your side, arms open wide. I am good and you are loved. I am good and you are loved.
What was in is covered by the one who was in is. You're covered by love. What was in is covered by the one who was in is. You're covered by love. I am good. You are loved. I am good, you are loved. There'll be times when you're up and times when you're down. I'm never too far. Just look around and you'll find me. I'm by your side, arms open wide. I am good, you are loved. I am good, you are loved. I am good, you are loved. Just to cover, you're covered, you're covered. You're still covered, you're covered, you're covered.
If you forget, just lift your head. My banner over you is love. If you forget, just lift your head. My banner over you is love.
If you forget, just lift your head. My banner over you is love. If you forget, just lift your head. My banner over you is love. My banner over you is love. What was and is covered by the one who was and is. You're covered by love. What was and is covered by the one who was and is. You're covered by love. I am good, you are loved. I am good,
I guess I've always been that weird kid. I've never been afraid of heights. I loved climbing trees. If there was a tower to climb, a fort to build, I was normally the first one there. In fact, I've dragged my kids to strange places too, as we climb mountains and get into forest rangers' huts and be able to see the viewpoints over miles and miles of forests. And I've just always enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it because it gives you a different perspective. It just makes you feel larger. Well, that's not always true. Sometimes it makes you feel smaller, but I always think it gives you just this incredible vantage point to see things differently. And when you can see things differently, then I think that also affects how you live. And that brings me to Psalm 130. So Psalm 130, it's a psalm of ascent. These would have been songs that they would have sung as they traveled to the temple or to give sacrifices, and normally it would have been major holidays that these psalms would have gone through. Sometimes they would have been as they travel. But these psalms generally were about celebrating a king coming into place or coming into power, or the promise of the future king. So that's what these psalms do, but this one's a little different. This one doesn't talk like that. Psalm 130, actually, if I had to put it in front of you, I'm not sure we'd depict it as a song of ascent. In fact, we'd probably pick it out as one of those repentant psalms. It's like, man, this is kind of a bummer. But I actually think there's something in here pretty positive. And I think it's something that's going to help us as we look at a brand new year. Psalm 130 starts like this. Out of the depths I call to you, Lord. Lord, listen to my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for help. Lord, if you kept an account of iniquities, Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, so that you may be revered. The psalm starts off with acknowledging that God hears us. And I think this is pretty significant. But I also think it's pretty significant to make this comment too. It says that he hears every one of our prayers. Doesn't mean he always answers them. And I know sometimes that can get pretty frustrating, but I also think the flip side is this. I'm kind of thankful God doesn't answer all our prayers, right? I mean, if he answered all our prayers, especially the way we wanted them to be answered, man, that would not be a great life for us. But the Lord hears our prayers. And I love the fact that the psalmist says, Lord, you hear me, please hear me, please hear me. And he's not asking the Lord to give him the answer that he wants. He's mature enough, he's smart enough to realize, no, I got to let the last word be with the Lord. I want him to hear me. I want him to hear me in my hurt and my pain, but I want him to have the last word. I want him to make the decision. And the reason the psalmist says that is in those next few verses. It's the concept of, if you kept track of all of my iniquities, you wouldn't even listen to me. Who could stand in front of the Lord if the Lord kept track of all of their iniquities? And so it's this kindness, it's this graciousness of God that even gives the psalmist the confidence to be able to say, Lord, hear my prayers. And man, I just think that's a great picture of God. And it's the same picture of God that Jesus gives us in the New Testament as well. But the psalm doesn't stop there. The psalmist goes on to say this. I wait for the Lord. I wait and put my hope in his word. I wait for the Lord more than watchmen for the morning, more than watchmen for the morning. You may not know this, but there are actually two kinds of watchmen in the Old Testament. Now, the first one you could probably guess. The first one was that watchman that would stand on the wall and stand at the city gate, and he would look out. And he would look out, across the miles and miles of terrain, and he's looking for enemies. He's looking for someone that is going to come and attack the city. And so when the enemy armies come, he can ring the bell, he can call the army to come stand, and he's watching for the morning, right? He stays up all night and he's watching for the sun to rise, because he knows that once the sun rises, then everything's going to be better. And so that's that watchman, and that's definitely one part of the watchman that the psalmist is talking about. But there's a second watchman in the Old Testament that we don't hear a whole lot about. It was called the Levitical watchman. Levitical is just a fancy word for the priest. You see, inside the tabernacle before the temple was built, and then when the temple was built, on the temple itself, they would have another kind of watchman. You see, particularly during Passover, they would have constant worship, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It would just be constantly burning, constant worship. And so that watchman was responsible to make sure that the worship continued, that it was continuous. And I think this is the kind of watchman that the psalmist is talking about. That as he waits on the Lord, he's cried out to the Lord, and then as he waits on the Lord, it's not just this, I'm going to wait and twiddle my thumbs, but I'm going to wait in this mindset of constant worship. I'm going to continue worship you while I wait on you, Lord. And I think it's this kind of watchman that the psalmist is talking about. The psalm ends kind of cool. Here's how it ends. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for there is faithful love with the Lord, and with him is redemption in abundance. And he will redeem Israel from all its iniquities. So the psalmist ends with that push for us, is that our hope is not in my goodness. The hope can't be in my ability to perform or my ability to think happy thoughts. My hope can't be in other people. My hope can't be in religion or anything else. My hope has to be in the Lord. And it's his faithfulness that gives me hope. And the psalmist points out that what gives him, the specific thing that gives him hope, is this phrase that's called the abundance and redemption. There is an abundance of redemption in the Lord. You know, the psalmists were quick to remind us that it's God's kindness that leads us to repentance. It's Paul that reminds us there's nothing that's ever going to separate us from the love of God. Jesus himself said that, you know, the essence of God in his essence is love. And so this abundance of redemption, this is our hope. That even though we have iniquities and we have sin, it's never going to be greater than God's redemption, because there's an abundance of his redemption. I know that in 2024, a lot of us had a lot of stuff we had to deal with, and some of it was our own fault, and some of it was other people's fault, and some of it was just life, right? And there was hurt and there was pain, but the hope for 2025 is not that as we turn the page, we get a new year. The hope in 2025 is Jesus, and that we will get to experience the abundance of redemption in him. And this is kind of my prayer for us in 2025. I think that's the hope of the gospel, that these things that they talked about in the Old Testament as a hope, and now we can actually experience as a reality because of Jesus. And I think that's good news. And that's my prayer for us in 2025, that we will get to experience the abundance of redemption. Let's go be the church. And Happy New Year.
Well, I've been turned around, but I've never been lost. Seen the water get troubled, but we walked across. When my knees were shaking, you held my hand, turning my problems into a promised land. Lead on, good shepherd, I'll follow all my days. There is nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valleys, but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. Seen some mighty deep canyons that you brought me through. Seen some mighty big mountains that just up and moved. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Yeah, that's my song. Walking with my Father into the great unknown. Lead on, good shepherd, I'll follow all my days. There is nothing sweeter than to watch you make a way. You walk me through the valleys, but you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. The road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd. you never steer me wrong. So lead on, good shepherd, lead on. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd. Step by step, day by day, lead me on, Lord, I pray. Road gets dark, walk by faith. Lead on, good shepherd. Lead on, good shepherd. Lead on, good shepherd. Lead on, good shepherd.